Hi, good afternoon, AFTO members. We are so excited that you're here today. We have Amanda Ferris, and she is going to help all of us be better than we were a moment ago. So to get started with Blindspots, we're going to do our discussion poll. So the first poll question, Amy, could you please put it up? Okay, our first poll is, in the Habit Finder assessment, have you taken the Habit Finder assessment yet? And that was from habitfindercoach.com. It says hosts and panelists cannot vote. Amy?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It says hosts and panelists cannot vote.
Oh, I'll have to change that for the next one.
Okay, perfect. All right. Here we go. Please put your answers in there. Let's see who has participated. Let's see our results, please. Fantastic. 74% of you have participated in the Habit Finder assessment. And the great part is Amanda's going to take us through this Habit Finder coach and all about your findings. 26% did not, but don't worry, you're going to have an opportunity after this. Okay, our next poll question, please. This year, we do believe is the top stressor getting, what do you believe is the top stressor getting in the way of a peaceful, productive day? Just choose one answer. Is it work, family obligations, depression, illness, personal or caring for loved ones, unexpected events or interruptions, lack of clarity on goals, personal or professional, current events, anxiety, worry, lack of resources, overwhelm, too much to do, uncertainty about future, and boredom, inconsistent or lack of energy? All right, submit your answers. Let's see the results, please. Okay, the winner is, survey says, it is overwhelmed, too much to do, not enough time. Okay, followed by 15% of unexpected events or interruptions. Fantastic. And we're going to talk more about top stressors a little later today. Okay, next poll question, please. What do you think is holding you back from maintaining healthier habits? Choose one. Is it lack of willpower, motivation, inspiration, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, worry, lack of support, lack of energy, not seeing results fast enough, lack of resources, time, money, tools, too busy, or plans are constantly changing, not confident in one's own ability to see it through, guilt, always putting others' needs ahead of one's own, and feelings of unworthiness or not desiring of one's desires, other limiting beliefs or self-sabotage, procrastination. Okay, make your selection. Choose one, please. And let's see the results. The number one answer is too busy or plans are constantly changing, followed by a tie. Lack of willpower, motivation, or inspiration, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and worry. Thank you all very much for answering that. Next question, what do you feel is most slowing you down in achieving your goals? Please choose one answer. Lack of willpower, motivation, or inspiration, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, worry, lack of support, lack of energy, not seeing results fast enough, lack of resources, too busy, not confident, guilt, feelings of unworthiness. Please make your answer. One selection, survey said. All right, let's see our results, please. Here we go. Too busy or plans are constantly changing wins again. followed by a new second place with anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and worry. And now we have lack of resources that has entered into the scheme of things. Okay, next poll question, please. Greatest mental strengths. What are your greatest mental strengths? Is it resilience, staying grounded, centered, planning, preparation, detail-oriented, visionary, emotional intelligence, compassion, and empathy, handling, thinking about multiple topics or projects simultaneously, flexibility, optimism, creativity, analyzing, focus, presence, being in the moment? What is your greatest mental strength? So many choices, so little time. And here we go. Do your final selection. All right, let's see what the results are. Here we go. At a whopping 32%, we have planning, preparation, and being detail-oriented, followed by emotional intelligence, compassion, and empathy, followed by handling, thinking about multiple topics or projects simultaneously. Excellent, excellent. And ironic on that one, being present, we had a 0% on that. Just wanted to throw that out to the universe. All right, next question. Daily thoughts and patterns. In the last 6 months, how often have you stepped back from your daily thoughts and thought patterns to analyze what is and isn't working for you? It's been 6 months or more, between 3 to 6 months, within the last 3 months, within the last 3 days. I have never intentionally devoted time to analyzing and considering what is and isn't working in my thought life. Good question. Okay, tell us what you think about your daily thoughts and patterns. Survey said, let's give us the results, please. Within the last 30 days, overwhelmingly at 44%. Fantastic. Okay, one more question, please. What resources, tools, technology would you ideally like to start using to create and support sustainable new habits of thinking? Choose one. In-depth assessment like Habit Finder or Neuralink Q, counseling, therapy, support group, high performance or life coaching mastermind group, personal development books, audio programs, workshops, and or seminars, journal, planner, mind mapping, lists, meditation or mindfulness practice, neurofeedback device, mobile apps, or other. So what resources, tools, technology would you ideally like to start? Please submit your answer. And then we're going to turn it over to Tracy after we get the results. Oh, wait, rules of engagement next. Okay, so the majority would like counseling, therapy, and support group, followed by high performance or life coaching and personal development books, audio programs. Fabulous. Thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts to get us started. Let's talk about rules of engagement. It's all about you. We want you to have a spectacular experience today. Please use the chat box. Please put your questions in there. Please give us your opinions. Use your emojis. Use your enthusiasm. We're going to keep this session fluid, and where it goes, it goes. And above all, have fun and feel free to participate. Okay, if you would, let's give Tracy a big round of applause. Tracy, woo!
Hey. Hello, attendees. We are excited to welcome Amanda Ferris back for this webinar session. Amanda has graced us with her energy and passion and knowledge during a few other webinars, including one during the 2021 AFTO conference, in case any of you were able to attend that. She's the Minnesota-based author, business consultant, and host of the Goal Next Door podcast. Amanda is always keen to create impact, as her early start in the childcare and hospitality industries led to over 20 years in operations management and corporate training. Amanda advises many executive leadership teams and entrepreneurs, which includes anything from startup organizations to publicly traded companies around the world. She also serves as the managing director for Clover & Kind, which is a company aimed at helping people create real, authentic connections in their workplace, communities, and at home. So everything she talks about today should be of value in all aspects of your life. Amanda is going to talk to us today about how to uncover potential blind spots that are blocking you from moving forward in your life and career, explore some ways to relieve mental pressure and leverage your strengths, and how to create your own well-being first aid kit, which I think we can all use. Additionally, she will go over the aggregated results for those that took the Habit Finder assessment before the webinar and provide us with some tools to move forward from there. So Amanda, we'll send it over your way.
Thank you so much, Tracy and Tara and Amy, and for all of you for being here. It is a pleasure to be with AFDO, and for those who are here with us live or watching the recording later, I just want to honor you and the time that you're taking today to work on yourself. Oftentimes, we can get so busy with life, with work, with our responsibilities and obligations that and based on the Habit Finder results in the poll here, we can see that, we have a lot of demands on our life as the world's changing and things are constantly pivoting, but this time today is for you. It's for you now, it's for you later. It's an investment in your joy and your fulfillment. And we all work really hard, whether you're in a job, so to speak, or you have your own organization, or you're just, going through life. There's so much value and joy in the moment. And oftentimes we put that off into someday when. So my hope is that by the end of this session, that you'll be equipped with some tools, you'll be able to have some access to resources that we'll sprinkle in throughout our time today, but also at the end, we'll provide you with some resource links so you can revisit it in the near future and beyond in perpetuity, because we're always learning and growing. And I just want to make sure that today you can have more self-awareness about what's the noise in our heads that's getting in the way of experiencing that joy today. And to be able to step back and say, all right, here's what it is. And these are the things that are in my area of control that I can start to see some progress and experience that joy. So before we jump into it, I'm curious why each of you decided to register for this webinar. Was there something specifically that was on your heart or your mind, or a life event? I'm curious, and that will help kind of guide our discussion as we go through the Habit Finder specifically and some of the readings that came up. But as we're going through, I invite you to ask lots of questions. Some of them, because of the nature of the Habit Finder assessment, there's many quadrillions of possibilities that this could be showing up. Everybody's is unique. So when we get into reading the assessment results, everyone's is going to look a little bit different, and the thought processes interplay with one another. So if it gets to be a technical question, I would encourage you just to reach out. You can send us an email, whether it's on the call or later. And there will also be an opportunity if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one debrief with me, where we go deeper into how this might be showing up in your world, and also how to develop a strategy to start seeing that progress and kind of reduce the noise in our head, so to speak. So I would love to pop into the chat here for just a second and see if anyone is active right now with just your thoughts on what is there a specific blind spot that you've noticed that when you took the assessment it stood out to you, or is there something happening in your world that's like, yeah, I think I'm going to get something of value here. And even if there wasn't a specific poll to attend today, if there is something specific that you want to get out of our time today, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. We'll make sure to get that covered. So you might be here if you feel like you're going after a goal and it just seems like it's a shifting horizon and we're just not getting there. Or maybe you were able to achieve goals in the past with ease and now things are different for whatever reason. Maybe you feel your capacity has changed or just the environment around you has changed. But if you are here today, that means that you're invested in your success, and not just in personal development, but you're actually willing to do the work to move yourself forward. And that is only going to benefit you and the people around you, your organization, and so on forever, because it's going to impact your life directly, but also indirectly. You're able to show, as you expand your ability to step back from your thoughts and make those adjustments, you can show that example to a world where a lot of us are living in our heads, on our phones, in our devices. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of stimuli. And so when we can cultivate those good habits and spread that around, that just makes a better environment. So that noise can be reduced over time and, in our four walls, whether that's home or work or our culture and community. So if you're looking for the most out of this experience, and we can go ahead and move into the next slide here, what I would recommend is a couple different things. So if you haven't taken the Habit Finder assessment, you absolutely can go into that same portal with the link that was shared earlier and take that assessment. We don't recommend taking it more than once every 6 months because it won't really be that big of a change. And then the other part of it is we want to make sure that this is a fair assessment of where you actually are in your thought life, as opposed to, oh, I remember I answered the question this way, or I moved this first worksheet in this way, where we're manipulating it. So we want to get the most honest assessment. I just want to remind you that this is a snapshot really of the noise in your head. It is not by any means a determination of who you are as a person. There's no judgment, there's no labels. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you have a copy of that assessment in front of you, whether that's digitally or you've printed it out, or you just want to have it up in another tab, that will be extremely important as we go through how to read each of the qualities and the characteristics of these thought processes, because we will go a little bit deeper as we go through. We can ask questions to determine, how is this showing up in our life? And you can revisit that at another time, whether that's tomorrow, later today, in 6 months, and start to see if you are implementing, say, a mindfulness practice, or you are working on any sort of personal development, or you're in counseling or therapy, or anything that is a tool that you like to use. Then you can start to see, is this causing any change in that noise level in my head? And that can be a good assessment of the progress that you've made, but also maybe the next area that you want to focus on and start to see results. And then I would also recommend for the overachievers here, which is probably everybody, just to keep in mind, if you can take away one thing in each of these areas to action, to identify what it is, jot it down, put it on a Post-it, put it in your phone, do whatever is going to work for you, that you can start to see and experience that traction in that one area. Look for ways that you could reduce the noise to increase your joy, or increase how you feel about your contribution in the world. That could be work, that could be at home, in your community, it could be anything. It's just how you show up and your sense of contribution. And then also one area and how that impacts your ability to connect with others. Again, that could be personal, professional, anything. But those are some common themes that will come through the assessment results. But if you just keep that in mind as we're asking these questions and just write it down, doesn't necessarily mean that has to be the one thing. But when we ask our brains a question and it starts to look for the results, then it will find an answer for us. And based on the levels on the analytical measurement, for example, we have a very analytical audience here. So I think that is a gift that can be used to your advantage, which I'm hinting at, of course, that when we're looking at these, they're not to indicate, oh, these are spots you're broken in. It's just some of our mental gifts, some of these thought processes can be inflamed, and we want to be able to identify what those are, so we can, instead of having them spooling in our mind and causing us to be out of alignment with our true, best, authentic self and how we really want to show up in the world and how we really want to get to our goals, we can learn how to leverage those gifts so that we're not just spooling into perpetuity, and we can actually use those gifts to get to where we want and to enjoy the journey as well. So what are we going to talk about today? We can move ahead into the mental strengths that want to sabotage you. So hinting at that as well. These are assessment results of a thought process. It's not a personality assessment. It is really measuring the noise in your head. And it's to give you a little bit of background on the Habit Finder assessment, it originally started off as the intentional creation assessment years ago. And without getting too much in the weeds of the neurology or the mathematics of it, this is mathematically correct. And it's with the same precision as, say, a thermometer is reading the temperature. So if you feel like you want to geek out like I do and learn how that actually works, it's based on axiological hierarchy using Cantor's transfinite calculus and the Hartman value profile. So when you were going through the assessment, the 2 pages of, you know, our inner world and our outer world, and you're rearranging the statements on that, all of those words had a mathematical value, which is fascinating, because as we go deeper, you'll be like, this, how did they know that? How did you know this isn't like I'm taking a BuzzFeed survey to find out what Disney princess I am. Like, this is actually showing me some of these thought processes that we'll want to take a look at. Now, I'm going to step back for just a second and encourage you once again that as we're looking at this, please remember these are just measurements of the noise. So just like if you were to go into a busy cafe and there's people everywhere talking and you get a phone call, the ability to take that phone call is not a reflection of who you are as a person. You just have noise in your environment, and you might step outside to take that call so that you can show up as your best self. Or maybe you're used to working in a busy, loud cafe, and so it doesn't bother you so much. So really, we're just looking at this as where are you in all this? You're going to be represented by the green. That's you, your true self. And any measurements that are going to go off into the gold, yellow, orange, or red are just a thought process that's showing that level of noise. So I would encourage you to think about that analogy or something that's helpful to you to be reminded that you are not your thoughts. And if you need to write that down, I am not my thoughts. That can also be a healthy mantra for those moments where we do think ourselves into analysis paralysis or self-judgment. And if you see a label, just to remember that's not you. You might actually have that quality in your life, but in this case, the assessment is just talking about that thought process. So we've talked in the last several webinars about mental well-being and work, and I think it's important to note that when we talk about mental well-being, it isn't just a matter of like, am I crazy? Am I sane? Am I broken? Am I fine? There's so many thought processes. There's so many stimuli. There's things going on in our world that impact our ability to show up as our best self. And really having a sense of mental well-being, while therapy and these tools to help us with, you know, cognitive behavior and whether or not we are feeling mentally well, that all plays into it. We need to look at it from a higher level. But also, what about the in-between time when we're just showing up at the job, or we're showing up at home in our personal life, or there's something that we want to do? You can practice mental well-being by being really aware of how we can use those muscles, so to speak. So where I'll use the analogy of exercise, where somebody might not start an exercise program until they have a heart attack, or there's an actual, you know, alarming issue or event that happens, and there's nothing, you know, at that point, they might decide, okay, I'm going to implement this new diet or this new exercise, and that's where the change begins to happen. And so I would compare that to maybe you have a mental health event or a trauma or something that triggers you, then you might start to implement some of these tools and these changes in your life. Otherwise, on the other side of the spectrum, you might decide that, you know, I'm healthy, I'm fine, I'm able to achieve my goals, I'm getting where I want, but I want to do more. I want to do more with less effort, or not have it feel as much effort. So this would be the equivalent, whether it's personal development or learning how to leverage these mental strengths in that in-between time. So it can actually help in supporting mental well-being, so that while it may not completely eliminate a mental health event or trigger or a trauma event from occurring, it can't. These are the thought processes that are like your regular fitness level to help you support the healing process if an event were to occur, or just to maintain that really healthy, mentally fit way of being. So I just want to underscore that what we're doing right now is we're looking at the mental barriers standing in the way of us showing up as our best self. And if you do have some concerns about mental health, or there's a trauma, or even if we're exploring some of these thought processes and something triggers you, a couple of different things I want to encourage you to do. Speak with a professional in the mental health profession. So whether that is a psychiatrist, psychologist, a medical professional, if it comes to the point where you do need some support. We're focusing today on more of the coaching side of it, the things that you can do for yourself personally and to navigate your ability to achieve more. And what we're doing today is called metacognition. So as humans, we have the ability to think, cognition, but metacognition is when you're able to step back and actually have thoughts about the thoughts. There's neuroplasticity. We have the ability to change our neural pathways, and we'll talk a little bit about that, not to get too much in the weeds, but what that is to say is when we're looking at our assessment results here today, or you take a personality assessment, or you go into a therapy situation, this isn't like a final diagnosis of like, hey, you're broken, or these are some areas. These are just some things to be aware of. And what's interesting is as a part of this process, if you have a thought that comes up that says, yeah, you're this fill in the blank quality, whether that's a self-judgment or a label, it doesn't have to be a bad one. It could be something that is like, yeah, I'm really proud because I'm compassionate, or I'm motivated, whatever that quality is in that thought process. Like, think about that, how you're thinking about that. Like, oh, I holds a lot of value in my mind. What does that say about my thoughts and my beliefs and my values? And then we can kind of start to unpack it from there, whether you're working with me one-on-one or you're on your own personal journey. How we think about our thoughts is important. So again, it's not a crazy versus sane, broken versus fine. We are just wanting to come into alignment with ourselves. So when we think about thought, to overly simplify it so we can get into the actual results, and I can show you how to read these results. It's measured on 3 dimensions of thought. There's intrinsic, there's extrinsic, and there's systemic. So while we won't go into the weeds on that specifically, I want to give you an idea with some of this language if you were to go do some research on your own about that. But the 3 levels of thinking are intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic, and that is where the axiological hierarchy comes into play, so that we can determine where on the scale your thoughts are landing. So we'll go ahead and move into the next slide, where we again just kind of reference the habit finder assessment. So if you remember taking it, it should have only taken 15 minutes. If it took longer than that, that's a good indicator you might have. If it took longer than 15 minutes, it's a good indicator you might have a strong thought process in analysis. So we'll come back to that in just a second, but that is a gift. On the first worksheet, we talk about the inner world. This is our thoughts about ourselves. This is our self-dialogue about who we are, our mission, our vision, how we want to show up in the world today, tomorrow, how we did yesterday or in our past. And then there's also the outer world, and that's our conversation with ourselves about everything else. So when we talk about the inner world, this is going to cover our expectations, our goals, our personal performance, our commitment level. And it's also our clarity about what those goals are, or our self-awareness and how we're showing up. So when we talk about identifying our blind spots, these are the challenges that make it difficult for us to show up as our best self. And again, as we look at these assessment results, just remember, you are represented, you as a person are represented by the color green. You are always you, always. And these thoughts are the things that are going to try to convince you to steer you away from you showing up in that way that you want to. So don't overly identify with the labels or the assessment results. Again, I feel like this is something that's really common. It's come up in over 2,000 of the people that I've worked with, where it's like, I mean, I even find myself, to be completely transparent, I even find myself looking at my assessment results and I'm like, yeah. And it's just, if you've taken Myers-Briggs, if you've taken DISC, if you've taken any of these personality assessments, that's just kind of how we're kind of programmed. So just going to encourage you a few times throughout today to not overly identify with the results that you're seeing. This is just a snapshot of the noise in your head. And then I also want to encourage you, as we're going through these results, to ask yourself, and I will probably repeat these questions a few times too. I'm going to go through it once and then repeat it so you can write it down if you'd like. How are these thoughts keeping you from showing up as your best self? And then as we look at each of these measurements, consider how difficult is it for you to fight these thoughts. So if you notice, oh, I'm going into analysis paralysis, or, oh, I'm kind of going into this fantasy sequence about how I want to build this business idea, or many other examples. If you catch yourself thinking that and you see where that thought process leads you, how difficult is it for you to kind of either turn that down and shift to a different topic or way of thinking? And how does that show up in your life? So think about how difficult it is, but also consider how often that's happening. Is it happening frequently at work? Is it happening frequently with a certain type of task or within a certain group dynamic? And when you do engage with that particular thought process that you know isn't serving your best self, what happens? Not to go totally Dr. Phil on you, but how is that working for you might come up when you're thinking about it. Like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Well, without going into self-judgment, I encourage you to go into it with a healthy curiosity, a sense of humor, because these measurements aren't going to have a sense of humor. They're very mathematical. So consider what happens in your life, in that event, in that thought process, when you do give in, when you do surrender to that way of thinking that isn't serving you. What happens in your life? How does that show up? Is it a confrontation with your significant other? Do you stick your foot in your mouth if you question authority in the wrong situation, or you don't practice tact because of another thought process that's quite loud in your mind? So again, consider, how is this showing up? What are these thoughts that are keeping you from being your best self? How difficult is it for you to fight off those thoughts or to change your way of thinking? And then how often is this occurring, and in what environments? And this can be really helpful as you go deeper on your own or with a coach, that you can start to see, oh, these are areas that are trip wires or landmines in my life that I need to sidestep a little bit, maybe change something a little bit to start to get a better result and not feel that that's just going to explode my world. And then also understand what has happened in the past when you do give into that, and understanding when we step back from that, when we've identified what those different answers are to those questions, as we analyze each of these thought processes, that's when we get to practice metacognition and say, all right, is this working for me, or is this something that I want to change? And you are so empowered to make a change in any moment. And that's really the goal of today, is to have more self-awareness so you can identify what those blind spots are, have the awareness in the moment as it's happening, and then be able to make those changes incrementally over the course of time, that you can start to experience more levels of joy and success that you deserve because you're working for it. But how great will it be when insert blank here for your goals, when it doesn't feel so hard, or when the goals are now within reach, and you can feel good about the process as well as the destination. So we'll go ahead and move into the inner world. So like we talked about, when we're looking at this assessment, the first worksheet is about our conversation with ourself about ourself. So this is our dreams, our sense of joy, and our sense of self, or identity of who we are. So the first category that we'll talk about in the inner world are my dreams. So when I say my dreams, that's your dreams. We'll just, for consistency, just go through that. What I'm going to do is I'll go through the section of this assessment, and what I'll first discuss is our group results. So anybody that took the assessment prior to Sunday, we've collated the results, and for the sake of time, I am only going to touch on the thought processes which had a large number of people either under-focused or over-focused on that quality. I would encourage you to go back. You can log in anytime to the portal that you took the assessment and look at your results, but you can also, to learn more about that specific thought process, click on it, and then it will show you some more about that thought process. And if you have any questions beyond what's available to you in the assessment itself, please send me an email. Me and my team, we'd love to connect with you, even if you don't set up a one-on-one call to go through your entire thing. If there's some question on how something's reading and how some of the words are used. When this assessment was created, they did studies of language all over the world, and some words were replaced so that there was more of a universal understanding of what is meant for that measurement. And sometimes when we look at like English in the United States versus English in Australia or the UK, we use the same words, it's the same English, but it can be meant a little bit differently. So if you run into that at all, please send me an email. I'll be happy to clarify and help you continue making progress. So when we look at our dreams and this measurement, this is helping us with the clarity of our vision in order to create the dream, bring it into reality. So this would be, let's say you have an idea, an inspiration, or you have a goal related to something you want to do in your life. It could be a tangible thing. It could just be a I want to be statement. It could be I want to start a business and how am I going to create it? These are the thoughts that are going to help us turn that vision into reality. This could be relevant to a job or a task at home. So we can provide a lot of examples of what that is. And please feel free to, if you have questions as we go through this, at the end of each of these sections, for both the inner world and the outer world, we'll have an opportunity to kind of pause, step back, and then answer any questions that come up. Again, if there is something that is more of a personal question about your assessment results and you want to have some clarity, send us an email so that we can go through that together, because all of these thought processes interact with one another. So I will be able to answer more generally for the sake of time for the entire group here, but I'd be happy to support you any way that I'm able. So I'm just going to check the chat really quick to see if there were any questions. Okay, I think we just have questions about where to find the assessment. So thank you for answering in there. Appreciate it.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah.
Just wanted to let you know, everything's going fantastic. We got the chat. We'll definitely jump in if we need anything. And we're about 20 minutes out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tara. Yep. They're just so amazing. I love it. I love Tara, Tracy, and Amy. They're so organized. I just have to honor them for a second. Most well-organized group here. Absolutely. It's just a privilege to be here today and to have that support. So thank you so much. So as a group, when we take a look at our inner world, My Dreams, the section My Dreams, as a group, what we found for those who participated in the assessment before Sunday is that, and I'll just kind of go down the qualities and you can follow along and take some notes. So what we found with the self-directed measurement, that 35% of this group was under-focused in that thought process and 28% were over-focused. So what that might look like is if you have feelings of obligation, you feel like the sentence or the word like I should do this, or I really should be doing this, or my business should be this, or my department should be this. If you have a lot of should statements, then you might be on the under-focused side of this self-directed measurement. If you're on the over-focused side, you might have a fear of failure, which results in perfectionism. So you might be throwing yourself into projects which you might be passionate about, you might not be, but there might be an extra boost of everything needs to be just so or else. Fill in the blank for the or else. When it comes to the excellence measurement, we found that similar percentages here, which was interesting, that 35% of this group was on the under-focused side of that thought process and 28% on the over-focus side. So if you fall into that category, you might feel like you're spinning your wheels. You might feel burned out, whether that's work or personal. Take it how it resonates with you. Only you know, I'm not a mind reader. We're a thought measurer. There's a big difference. So this can definitely be a great dive into, how is this showing up? If you're on the overfocused side of excellence, your thought process wants you to believe that you're not good enough. And that can show up in many different ways. So I want you to consider, if you had both of those measurements on your assessment where you were either under or over focused in those areas. And I'm only going to, if somebody is adding up all the percentages, they're not going to add up because I'm not going to talk about the people who landed in the green section just for the sake of time. But that just means you're in alignment. You're showing up as your best self in that particular measurement. So yeah, something to consider if you showed up either on the under focus or the over focus side. So that could be red, orange, yellow, gold, amber, whatever you want to call it for either side of this assessment results. If you have those types of thoughts, where is that showing up in life, and how is that impacting your ability to feel fulfilled on the journey? How is that impacting your ability to stay motivated and to continue wanting to build those dreams of yours? As a group on the intentional thought measurement, 66%, a large number, this is one of the larger numbers of the group, were over focused in this category. So these thoughts want you to be skeptical. They want you to be stuck. And if you give into these thoughts that want you to be stuck in intentional, you can start to have the feelings of resignation, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? We might be saying, oh, this is way more effort than I wanted to do. I'm not getting paid enough, or I'm not going to get the remuneration that I deserve. So I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to sit back and skate. On the other side of things, there is a small percentage of this group that did show up as under focus and intentional. So what that could mean is you might have feelings that want you to be unsure about the direction of your life. And it can also cause you to become too open or hasty because you want a problem solved. You might just say, I don't care what the solution is. Let's just move on to the next thing. I don't care what the idea is, because you might not even trust yourself. On the coachable measurement, 19% of this group was measuring as under focused and 39% on over focused. So how that might show up is on the under focused side, again, feelings of apathy, and you might feel like you're just going through the motions. Now, this is, again, not a judgment of who you are as a person. These are thoughts that want you to believe these things. When you're showing up as your best self and you don't have these voices, I kind of imagine, as we're looking at this, if you're sitting at a really long board table and each of these 32 thought processes are sitting around the table and they all have something to say, any of the measurements that are not in green are a little bit louder than you. And so they are interjecting and they all talking at the same time. And so that's one way to look at these thoughts interacting with one another. It's getting in the way of you needing to do what you want and need to do. This can also, on the other side of the spectrum, can have you feeling overwhelmed. Does anybody here feel overwhelmed this year? I've definitely felt this. And it definitely sets in. It's a great opportunity to practice that self-awareness. And I think the first part is identifying what that is. And it's okay. It's okay. Once we know that we're feeling overwhelmed, we can do something about it. When we look at the next few measurements, so when we look at resilient, of this group, 16% were in the under focus side, where 47%, almost half of us, scored in over focused on resilient. So when we take a look at that measurement, that can create confusion. It can create doubt. We might feel rigid about our ideas, how we want to go through a process. If we have an idea, we can become extremely attached to the method in which we create or how we work, how we build. And we might also feel tempted to put off difficult decisions because it's not just the decisions. If somebody has, if you need to, for example, have a confrontation with somebody on your team, or there's a task that's been assigned to you, and there's some challenges within that task, this thought process wants you to feel overwhelmed to the point where you either put off the work, you put off the decision because addressing that area that needs support, that either has you raising your hand for extra support, clarity, or help. It's like that process of going to ask for help or getting what you need or getting the resources is going to create more conflict or drama or controversy. And so we avoid, this thought process wants to avoid the interaction or that task altogether because it's just too much. This can also create a hesitancy to problem solve in the way that we would when it comes to showing up as our best self. So what I want to ask you, because we had so many measurements and a high quantity of people that had this measurement show up, when you think about your beliefs and your values and what's most important to you, how do you feel when somebody tries to minimize the importance of those values and beliefs? And if you're like, I don't know, I don't know, what do you mean by that? Think about the last time you might have been triggered. Think about the time where somebody said something you didn't agree with. It could be about current events. It could be about your faith or, beliefs and just how people should act. If somebody's acting in a certain way and it doesn't align with how you think and feel and believe, if somebody said, yeah, well, I don't really care how you think, or I really don't care what your belief is because it doesn't matter. My way is better. And we're not even going to give you airtime to talk about it. So those are the types of situations that this thought process can creep up. And I also want to mention, when we're looking at each of these categories and we see the green and we see all these different colors, you might be a person who has scored your thought processes are mostly in alignment, but there might be just a little bit of an overfocus or an underfocus in an area. I'm here to tell you that while it seems mostly in alignment, it can feel just as intense as somebody who has scored on the far red on either side or in between. The reference that I was using earlier about going to work in a cafe, for example, that's really busy. Some people are used to that. Some people thrive in that environment. Some, especially entrepreneurs and executives and people who are used to kind of all of this energy and multiple things going on, you got to get in this rhythm. Your thought processes will show that. You'll see, oh, these are strengths. And even though they're inflamed, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a struggle. It just means you've got this background noise, but you're good. You're still able to show up. But for somebody who has a primarily aligned reading here, a little bit of an uptick in one area or downtick in another, then I just want to say it doesn't necessarily mean you might not be conscious or aware, but you could be feeling the same way or similarly to somebody else. So I just saw a question here, I think. Oh, sorry, no, Tracy's got it. You guys are great. Okay, so a lot of details there, but just think about how this might be showing up for you. So we'll go ahead and we'll move into the next section, which is our inner world, our joy. This is really talking about fulfillment. So these are how we feel about our life. And we'll go a little bit quicker through the rest of these, but now that we have an understanding of kind of how to read these graphs and charts. And I actually did take screenshots of actual assessment results within the group. They're all confidential. I just want to remind you of that. But I wanted to pick ones that were coming up really frequently. So I've been able to conduct a lot of these assessments and go through debriefs with people from all over the world. And we do see patterns. While every assessment is unique, this is an example of a common pattern in this group where you have these particular measurements off to one side, and then you have this other one. And when we go into more of like a one-on-one interaction and deeper dive into how that might be showing up and what you want to do, that's when we get to talk about some of like the more aggregated results of what we've seen across different cultures, different industry, or a certain type of office setting or family environment. And we'll ask more questions about that. But for the sake of time, again, we'll just come back to the results. But this, if you see the result on the screen and yours does not match that, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. So I'm just reminding you, everybody's is unique. We're focusing mostly on the most common results that came up. So in the joy category, the joyful thought measurement, 78% of this group was scoring on off to the left on that high red kind of disheartened level. And that doesn't necessarily mean you are disheartened, but you might have thoughts that say, you know, by now I really should be here. I really think I thought it was going to be easier by now. And if you have thoughts like that, I encourage you after the session today to go a little bit deeper. Where is that coming from? On the grateful measurement, 18% of this group scored on the underfocus side, and 56% were overfocused in this thought process. And in this particular thought measurement, if you have an under or overfocused measurement, you might feel impatient. You might also have thoughts that have you believing you haven't been recognized, and which might actually be happening. You might not be recognized or appreciated or getting the acknowledgement you need, but these thoughts are bringing a lot of extra attention to that. On the effective measurement, 14% of this group was on the underfocus side, and 44%, almost half, were on the overfocused effective measurement. And these thoughts can have you believing or feeling like you're juggling a lot of things. Do you ever feel like you're spinning a ton of plates, or that there's just a lot of frantic energy? This also can influence your ability or desire to plan. You might have good intentions to put a plan into motion for your week, for your task, for a project, but you're consistently inconsistent, where you might start something, but then it doesn't really work out. So if anybody like myself has started a diet and it didn't work out, it's like day 2, nope, or day 3, it just didn't work out, because these thoughts have, they might want you to go into the thought process of like, well, it doesn't matter anyway, or I'm not getting the results I want to see. It can also cause us to be disillusioned or feel like we're wasting our time if we're spending a lot of time in that planning process. And then those feelings of resignation come in. On the realistic thought process, 26%, almost a third of this group, thought processes scored in underfocused, while 30% scored on the overfocused. So again, if you think about a work project, if you're underfocused in this, or if your thought process is underfocused in this particular area, you might feel like, the word that's coming to mind is disappointment, or a fear of disappointment. You might be avoiding disappointment by lowering your expectations on purpose. Like, I don't think I'm going to get what I want or need out of this. So if I just go into it with low expectations, then I won't be disappointed. Have you ever thought of that task or project or anything in your life? Has that shown up? And I'd ask, have you had a past letdown that has influenced you, and where that thought process is? I want to say something. If you have a measurement anywhere here that is over or under focused to the point where you're in the orange or the red, that thought process, thinking that way or having that heightened sense of noise in that particular area, has served you. It has served you in some way, otherwise it wouldn't be there. So when you think back to, where does this come from? How has that served me? Maybe in the past you were let down. You put a ton of your heart and soul and fire into a project and it flopped. So in the next several projects that you found that by lowering your expectations or not being so heart and soul into it, that you didn't have that letdown. It was a protection thing. And by reinforcing that thought process, that did serve you on some level. So there's no judgment there when we're looking at these as, if that's helped you in the past, good, that helped protect you, that might help get you past an emotional trauma or an interaction as you were developing as a child. This could have been an interpersonal reaction at work. So think of that as okay, that happened, that has served me. Do I want to keep that? Do I want to keep that? If I do, how can I use that to benefit me going forward? Hey, Tara.
Hey, so we've been having a little chat on the side, and I just wanted to get you up to date. We definitely want you to finish all of this, but we have a hard stop at 3:00. So I know we're not going to be able to get past this slide, and we have much more to give everyone. So is it possible for you to come back next month and help us all and finish this? And then the folks that didn't have a chance to take the assessment, they can take the assessment and carry on. Would that be okay?
I think that sounds great. Yeah. And, I got to say, I get really fired up of obviously, this is our lives. And I saw in the chat, somebody was saying, yeah, we need more joy. And especially right now. And I wonder if I go and I take the assessment right now, if this would show up for me, because we need more resources like this to be able to learn how to quiet our minds and action this. But because there's so much noise inside our head, outside of our head. Yeah, I would love to support in that way. So what we can do actually right now is I hope that this first section has really been able to give you some meat of how do we approach looking at the rest of the assessment. Email me if you have specific questions, would love to come back. And then if we just skip ahead to the second to the last slide about additional resources, because whether or not you attend a webinar or you take the assessment, some of these things can support you in your day-to-day starting today. And especially, kind of going back, I've hinted at this a few times, the majority of this group scored extremely high in the thought process for analysis, which is a gift. That is a gift. When we can analyze, we're able to handle details, we're able to plan, we're able to create amazing results. But when it's inflamed, when it's over generating energy, that can cause challenges for us and rob us from our joy. So I want to point that one out because it affects pretty much everybody here. And if not you, probably somebody you know. So if you want help in supporting a quieting of the mind, there's a few resources here. At mindmyhive.com, there is something called the grounding practice. And that is an audio resource that you can listen to anytime from your mobile device, from your computer, anywhere. And if you want to go into more of a mindfulness exercise and practice in your life, I spoke with the founder of Peach Mindfulness, and she was thrilled that we were going to be discussing kind of the noise in our head and how they do a customized approach. So you can go to this link and you can get that product for 7 days for free. And she's also generously offered a 20% discount to anybody here that wants to enroll either in the monthly or the yearly program by using the AFTO code here. Also, if you might be in the club with me on how some of these thoughts impact how we self-soothe, and food might be a part of that process. There is a coach that I've worked with personally. His name is Dean Smith. He's had a documentary about his amazing man, but he also helps people if this relationship with food and self-soothing some of these thought processes are becoming a problem, whether it's for your health or just you're doing mental acrobatics, like trying to wrestle with, hey, should I have that donut? Or hey, and that's taking up a lot of real estate in your mind. He's offering a program to help you take more ownership in that area so you don't have to deal with the stress and the burden of that, so you can accomplish the goal that you want. Additionally, if you want to book a call with me where we go into a deep dive of your specific assessment results and really uncover, we really leave no stone unturned, where we uncover some of these things. Again, I'm not a mind reader. You're going to be reading your mind, but we look at these thought measurements. We ask questions. It's a confidential environment where our team has made this possible, and AFTO has made it possible for us to do this for no charge today, and to be able to have these assessment results. Again, you can go back to the portal at any time, but if you do want that one-on-one dedicated time, you can take advantage of that through the end of October if you book for half off. And then you can just send us an email, just mention AFTO, and we'll get you taken care of. So that would be for anytime between now and the end of November, so that you can kickstart your new year or sooner without having to wait for those pesky New Year's resolutions to get the results and that joy that you want. But I hope that by looking at our thoughts today and noticing like, hey, I am not my thoughts. This is happening, but now I can do something about it. You can feel empowered to tackle those blind spots and to start seeing that success that you're working so hard for and you do deserve. So thank you so much. Thank you again, Tara and Tracy and Amy and Afto, for having me here today. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate everybody's participation that has taken advantage through taking the assessment, or we've gotten other emails about that. And then, yeah, I would just love to talk with you and go through how we can get rid of those blind spots so that they're right out in the open and we can have.
Amanda, thank you
about it.
so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give it up for Amanda. And we will see you in October.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Amanda. You're awesome. We love you.